If you've been told that discipline is the primary key to deep focus, I have some unfortunate news for your ego. You've been lied to. In fact, forcing yourself to concentrate is often the fastest way to trigger a biological strike in your skull that effectively shuts down your productivity for the rest of the day. We've been conditioned to believe that trying harder is a moral virtue, but in the world of neuropsychology, effort is frequently the enemy of execution. If you don't solve this friction, this constant grinding of your mental gears, you aren't just losing an hour of work here and there. You are losing the compounding interest of your life's potential. You are trading your vivid, high-definition future for a blurry montage of unreturned emails, half-finished projects, and that persistent low-grade hum of what if that keeps you up at night. As your resident mind decoder, I'm here to tell you that we are moving past the hollow platitudes of hustle culture and the toxic obsession with 4 a.m. cold plunges. Today, we are going to bypass your willpower entirely and look at the actual physics of your gray matter. I'm going to show you how to stop looking for focus and start engineering a state of flow in exactly 10 minutes, not the 20 to 30 minutes it usually takes by decoding the high-performance launch codes of your own biology. Reason you failed to reach this holy grail of productivity in the past isn't because you lack grit or because you didn't buy the right minimalist planner. It's because you are operating on a broken system, specifically an ancient survival mechanism that views your complex to-do list as a life-threatening predator. For the deep-thinking introvert who processes every pin drop, or the scanner brain with 47 open tabs regarding urban beekeeping, Renaissance art, and Python coding, the world is a non-stop assault on your selective attention. Every time you try to force yourself to sit still and work, your amygdala, the brain's primitive smoke detector, sounds the alarm. It senses the metabolic cost of the task, and seeing no immediate survival benefit triggers a subtle freeze response. Here's the ultimate paradox of the distracted mind. The harder you try to concentrate, the faster your brain burns through its limited supply of glucose, and the quicker your prefrontal cortex, the expensive, high-maintenance CEO of your mind, hands in its resignation and heads to the metaphorical pub. You find yourself in a state of cognitive grinding, where you've spent 3 hours staring at a screen. Your neck is stiff, your eyes are dry, and you've accomplished absolutely nothing but rearranging your desktop icons. You feel wired but tired because your brain is currently trying to run a 2026 operating system on hardware that hasn't had a firmware update in 200,000 years. To fix this, we have to look inside the black box of the flow state, that magical realm coined by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, where work feels effortless and time simply vanishes. Think of your brain like a high-end computer. Your working memory is the RAM. It is brilliant but tiny, capable of holding only a few tools at once. Most of the time, your RAM is cluttered with the background noise of unfinished projects, social anxieties, and the attention residue of the last 5 things you looked at on your phone. To reach peak performance, we don't need more willpower, which is a tragically finite battery. We need a process called Transient Hypofrontality. This is a fancy term for a very simple biological aha moment. Imagine a housebreaker box where you flip the thinking switch OFF and the action switch on. Flow happens when that expensive, micromanaging CEO in your prefrontal cortex finally takes a coffee break and hands the keys to your basal ganglia, the efficient, intuitive workers who actually know how to get the job done without overthinking it. This isn't just a psychological theory. It's a neurochemical shift that would make a Silicon Valley chemist jealous. When you reach this state, your brain flushes out the stress hormones like cortisol and replaces them with a potent cocktail of dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, and the rare bliss molecule called Anandamide. This chemistry is what allows athletes to perform impossible feats and musicians to play notes they didn't know they could reach. It turns the scanner brain's ability for far transfer, connecting seemingly unrelated ideas into a creative superpower. The turning point for you is realizing that your productivity isn't a character trait. It is a chemical reaction. You aren't lazy. You're just chemically uncalibrated. And you can't willpower your way out of a biological imbalance any more than you can willpower a car with an empty tank to drive to the next city. The key to the cage is already in your hand. You just need to know how to turn it dots. So, the question isn't, how do I get motivated? But rather, how do I trigger this chemical shift on demand without the 30-minute struggle? We do this by initiating what I call the Neuro-Launch Sequence. This isn't a hack or a tip. It is a precise biological protocol designed to smuggle your brain past its own security sensors and straight into the stratosphere of high performance. But before we get into the micro steps of the sequence, you need to understand that the first 2 minutes are going to feel like a disaster. Your brain is going to resist. It's going to scream for a distraction. It's going to try to convince you that researching the history of the stapler is more important than your primary goal. This is the struggle phase, and if you don't know it's coming, you will quit every single time. But if you follow the sequence, you can compress that struggle from a 30-minute war into a 3-minute skirmish. The clock starts now, and for the first 3 minutes of our Neuro-Launch Sequence, we are going to perform what I call the cognitive redline. Most people treat their focus like a delicate candle, trying to shield it from the wind. But we are going to treat it like a jet engine that needs to be cleared of debris. For these first 180 seconds, you are going to intentionally overwhelm your system. If you are a scanner with 50 projects, I want you to grab a piece of paper and write everything you need to do, not just for this project, but for every project at a speed that makes your handwriting look like a ransom note. If you are coding, write the messiest, fastest logic possible without fixing a single typo. The goal here is to flood your working memory until it hits the limit. By revving your brain to its maximum RPM, you are essentially forcing the prefrontal cortex to surrender. You want to feel that slight itch in your skull, that sense of being slightly too fast for your own thoughts. This discomfort is the literal sound of your internal CEO throwing up its hands and admitting it can no longer micromanage the details. We are engineering a tactical collapse of the ego to make room for the workers. Once the red line is achieved and your hand is slightly vibrating, we move into the second phase from minute 3 to minute 7, which is the 4% pruning. The biggest mistake you've made in the past is trying to launch a space shuttle into a target the size of the entire sky. To enter flow, we need a narrow beam laser. In neuropsychology, we talk about the challenge skills balance, specifically the sweet spot, where the task is exactly 4% harder than your current ability. For these 4 minutes, you are going to take your primary project and prune it down from a giant mountain to a singular high-fidelity subtask. You don't write a chapter. You describe the precise texture of the character's coat in the rain. You don't analyze the database. You clean the first 20 rows of column B. By narrowing the challenge to something that is just difficult enough to require your full attention, but not so hard it triggers an amygdala hijack, you are providing your basal ganglia with a target it can actually hit without needing the CEO's constant permission. But wait, because between minutes 7 and 9, you are going to hit the hidden obstacle. This is the moment where the struggle phase reaches its peak. You will feel a sudden violent surge of restlessness. Your brain will tell you that this is boring, that you should check your phone, or that perhaps you should go back to researching the history of the stapler. This is a biological trap. It's the prefrontal cortex trying to stage a coup to regain control. Most people quit right here, just 2 minutes away from the promised land. To bypass this, we use the physiological anchor. You are going to take a deep breath in through your nose, follow it with a second sharp sip of air to fully expand your lungs, and then let out a long, slow exhale through your mouth. This physiological sigh sends a direct signal through your vagus nerve to your brainstem, telling your system, the perimeter is secure. You are safe to release the chemicals. You are telling your biology to stop the stress response and initiate the flow response dot at exactly the 10-minute mark. The noise in your head will suddenly vanish. The restlessness will transform into a quiet, focused intensity. You have officially reached the state of transient hypofrontality. Your executive suite has finally gone home for the evening. The action workers are in full control, and your brain is now releasing that potent neurochemical cocktail of dopamine and anandamide. This is where the magic happens. Because the noise is gone, you can finally use your scanner nature's greatest gift, far transfer. You will start seeing the underlying harmony in the data, the connections between that art project and this business strategy, because your mind finally has the silence required to hear the music. You have moved from a scattered light bulb to a focused laser, and the work that used to take you 6 hours of grinding will now disappear into 2 hours of gliding. Imagine your life 30 days from now. You are no longer the person trying to be productive, fighting a daily, exhausting war against your own boredom and anxiety. You have become the architect of your own genius. You no longer wake up fearing your to-do list. You wake up knowing you have the launch codes to conquer it. You have moved from being a dabbler who lacks grit to becoming a system master who understands that their polymathic, multi-passionate nature is actually their greatest strategic advantage. This shift in identity from someone who is distracted to someone who is digitally elite is the final piece of the puzzle. You are now the person who connects the history of technology to the future of the market. And you do it with zero friction to help you master this Neuro-Launch Sequence every single morning. I've put together a resource called the Flow Launch Blueprint. It's a minimalist PDF that maps out the exact cognitive redline drills for your specific scanner brain type, ensuring you never have to guess during those crucial first 3 minutes again. You can grab it at the link below. If you've ever felt like your curiosity was a liability, I want you to tell me in the comments, what was your biggest minute 8 struggle today? How did your brain try to trick you into quitting? Let's decode these patterns together. And if you're ready to see how this elite focus transforms your entire career architecture, you need to watch our next video on the M-shaped professional, which will show you exactly where to point this newfound laser focus to build a life that no specialist could ever dream of. Reclaim your mind. Build the bridge. I'm the Mind Decoder, and I'll see you in the next one.